Hello, everyone. Episode number 48. We wanted to dedicate a separate, specific episode to talk about India because both of us have some views, not probably very distinct in nature, but more like it kind of warrants that conversation given the whole investment in terms of the players, the kind of squad that's chosen, and the recent injuries and the supposedly the so-called niggles. Um, and followed by Instagram stories by players and a lot of opinions flowing in. I thought, okay, we should also get into the bandwagon and then share our views there. Uh, Before I kind of hand it over to Pawan to talk about how India is going to fare or probably what their chances are and how are we doing in terms of fixtures. Just probably a sneak peek into the past. What necessarily happened in 2011. That's where probably the whole foundation needs to start. Mainly given two of our current squad players were pretty much part of 2011, which was necessarily a fresh start after the debacle in 2007. 2011, India go on to lift the World Cup. Eventually, that pretty much means the first team to actually host a World Cup and also eventually win it. And 2015, 2019, no surprises. Australia and England host and they go on to win it. 2015 World Cup, of course, under MS Dhoni, we had a very stable, firm, unchanged 11 that went on to play until semis. But of course, we just faced a better, fitter, and a very also a great Australian squad, which was very, I'll say, accustomed to the Sydney ground and whatnot, right? And eventually, it was expected, and it was not necessarily a heartbreak that we thought we would. Let's also face it, in 2019, India had a terrific World Cup, but we don't measure success of India with if they were top of the table, if they are going to play, uh, if they're going to finish top and then eventually have were leading in the charts of say wickets or batters and whatnot. Or ultimately, it's a silverware that counts. And then let's be honest, there's something terribly wrong with the luck part too. Of course, it's 15 minutes of dismal cricket that we saw early in the morning, but a lot of it had to do with the factor called luck. But as cricketers, as world champions, as someone who's been playing so much cricket all the while, it's expected that you're going to face those fiery, seeming New Zealand attack on a morning as well, even if you don't win the toss. Sorry, even if you don't bat first. Uh, and here we come, 2023, change of fortunes, hopefully, change of captain. Uh, but what I actually see is that this captain has not been erratic in terms of choices. I mean, a lot of injuries that we saw in the recent past were only replacement, and hence the bench has been tried and tested. But I think, say, 13 or 15 players were more or less someone who were kind of selecting themselves. But a lot of debate could perhaps go in terms of talking about the extra one to two players and then the choices there. And to kind of delve into more, I'll ask Pawan Bhaiya to, just talk about his heart out in terms of what's necessarily going to happen in the coming 45 days. Over to you, Pawan Bhaiya.
Thank you very much, Ravi, for that great introduction about Team India, the hosts of the 2023 ODI World Cup. And yes, before the Asia Cup, there were a lot of doubts lingering in the minds of well-wishers and fans of Indian cricket, whether we are able to put up a side that will be able to, compete and win the World Cup. And I think one of the primary reasons for that is the ODI format has just become restricted to the World Cup now. And like I mentioned in my um, talk a couple of episodes ago, that in the intervening 3 or 4 year period, bilateral ODI cricket has become irrelevant. And it was due to that reason that India never assembled their first choice ODI 11 that they would have liked to. Since the 2019 World Cup, they have played very, very less amount of one-day games. And that was the reason they were not able to conjure up their best possible 11, wherein more time was given towards the red ball format with the WTC going on, and we have a T20 World Cup every 2 years, so uh, there's not much gap between world tournaments in those two formats as compared to the ODI format. And hence, once they started to fit in the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle come the Asia Cup, we saw how lethal they can be and a great force to reckon with. And when we look at the side that they have picked, it's the best possible side that India could have picked, and I don't see anybody missing out largely. Uh, when we start off with the top order, I think the likes of Gill, Rohit, and Kohli are the main force to reckon with and should set the tone for India as far as the batting department is concerned. Uh, our middle order has been a point of concern since the 2019 World Cup, and we saw what happened in that semi-final against New Zealand when the top order failed collectively, when we took for granted that they are going to perform, or at least a couple of the top three are going to perform in every game. But we have a good-looking middle order in the form of, uh, KL Rahul, Shreyas Iyer, Suryakumar Yadav, and Hardik Pandya. And to tag off that would be the left-handed option of Ishan Kishan. We have a solid spin attack to boast of as well, led by Kuldeep Yadav, who's got a second lease of life and has returned to his old ways, uh, and will be ably supported by the two senior pros in the form of Jadeja and Ashwin, and to round off a super pace bowling battery lineup that we've got in the form of Bumrah, Siraj, and Shami, ably supported by Shardul Thakur, who has the uncanny knack of picking up wickets and uh, scoring some vital runs as well. And if you remember me telling you that when the squad was first selected, I felt that we were thin on the spin department, whereas they went for Akshar Patel purely for his batting abilities than his bowling abilities, because doesn't have much to show as far as his white ball bowling credentials are concerned. And the form of Ravindra Jadeja with the ball and white ball format also has been a bit of a concern in the last couple of years, although his batting has progressed very well with his best innings coming in that semi-final against New Zealand, and he almost single-handedly took India home uh, and into that World Cup final. But nevertheless, we fell short. So I was of the opinion that we should have a second attacking spinner definitely in the squad. And I did not go to Ravi Ashwin. I somehow felt that somebody like a Yuzi Chahal should have been there. But nevertheless, they've gone
Mhm.
to a finger spinner who is a bit different as compared to Jadeja and Kuldeep, and gives us some kind of batting ability. So I think the right choice was made. I don't know if Akshar's injury is genuine or it's been made up just to accommodate Ashwin. It's anybody's guess, but I feel it's the later in this case. So otherwise, no player would want to miss the World Cup after having been initially selected in the squad. The main problem area I see for India in this World Cup is, uh, how they select their playing 11, depending on the conditions, because they are the only team, being the hosts, who are going to play all the 9 matches in 9 different venues. Um, that's how it normally works out for every home team, because their fan base in almost every corner of the country needs to, have a look at their heroes. So, what kind of team they assemble, places like Chennai, Delhi, and Lucknow, which are going to aid spin, versus what they're going to select in, Ahmedabad, Mumbai, Pune, and Kolkata, Bengaluru, which are like batting paradises. I think the biggest point of concern would be to see who fits in that number 5 spot, because Rahul is a lock in at number 4, and Hardik will be a vital cog in the team at number 6. And lend that balance. He's bowling full throttle, and he will definitely be adding more venom to the pace attack. So we've got 3 contenders for the middle order spot at number 5, in the form of Suryakumar Yadav, Shreyas Iyer, and Ishan Kishan. Uh, you know, you can bring in Ishan Kishan to just break the monotony of the batting lineup where you see all right-handers. Uh, but you also cannot ignore somebody like a Suryakumar Yadav, albeit it's not been a revelation as far as ODI format is concerned, but he's going to come out to bat at that position more or less after 30 overs when the Indian top order has laid down the platform. And we know how dangerous he can be. So if he comes after the 30th over, it's virtually like a T20 game for him. So he can, play with gay abandon, and we know the kind of damage that he can do in that space of even 25 to 30 deliveries, and score at a strike rate of well above 150 or so. Change the course of a game when batting first or while chasing as well. And you have somebody like Shreyas Iyer who is coming back from an injury, but just scored that 100 in the nick of time against Australia. Is a naturally attacking player, a good player of spin bowling. So I think it all depends on the conditions on that given day, how well they read the conditions, and then pick the best possible option out of those three. And the other thing that they have to decide is who to play at number eight, because uh, they are looking to have depth in their batting lineup, which some of the other top sides have. England bat until number 11, Australia bat very deep as well. So they need to counter those sides. There always has been a feeling uh, within the team management and the likes of Dravid and Rohit have always thought that they want batting depth. And that is one of the reasons they went ahead and selected Akshar Patel and Shardul Thakur in the first place. So whether they play that third seamer and make Hardik Pandya the fourth seamer, or whether they play a third frontline spinner and make Hardik Pandya the third seamer remains to be seen. And I think, again, that'll be dictated by conditions. If they go for the third spinner, it's a no-brainer that Ashwin Jadeja and Kuldeep play, and then Ashwin will be at number 8. Um, Whereas if they want to go with another pace bowling option, then obviously it'll be Shardul at number 8. Uh, with the way the team management thinks, I don't see Shami, Bumrah, and Siraj all playing together. That would just
Hmm.
lengthen the tail, uh, because Kuldeep also will then have to play, although his batting has improved a bit, but I don't think India will take that chance. I see Bumrah and Siraj, being the main two spearheads of the pace bowling attack and starters. Unfortunate that Shami might have to sit out, barring an injury to either of them. And they'll be key to the success of the Indian team in many ways. Uh, and of course, their first prerogative will be to get past the group stage and qualify for that semifinals. I don't think it matters where you finish in the top four. As long as you finish in the top four, uh, it's not like an IPL playoff situation where the team that finishes first gets two bites at the
Hmm.
cherry, and can get into the final even after losing one match. India were the best side at the end of the league phase in 2019, and then they played the number 4 side in New Zealand, and we know what happened. So I think their biggest test will be once they qualify for the semifinals. That's been their main issue in the last so many world tournaments, on how they perform in that crunch games like semifinals and finals, whether they're able to handle that pressure. And the pressure will even be more in a home World Cup, like it was in 2011, where everywhere they go, from the hotel staff to the bus driver, would be telling them that nothing less would suffice other than winning the World Cup. So it's very easy to say that we shut off the outside noise. But in this day and age, if we compare to 2011, the day and age of social media, it's all very well saying that we'll not be reading newspapers or watching any news channels, but that's next to impossible in this day and age, with social media being such a key player. So how they keep that pressure at bay, being professional cricketers, they're expected to do so and then produce the right kind of result. I think the start is going to be very important. So they square up against the Aussies at Chennai. So very interesting to see what kind of pitch they dish up. I hope they don't provide a ranked turner or something like that, because they could dig up a hole for themselves as well, because this Indian batting lineup is not the best player of spin bowling like the early generation of Indian batsmen was. And they go into a game against Afghanistan at Delhi, followed by the big one against Pakistan at Ahmedabad, um, and then against Bangladesh in Pune. And after that, they have two very tough back-to-back games against New Zealand in Dharamshala. you might end up, on the wrong side of the conditions in Dharamshala and have likes of bold Saudi and Henry bowling against you in helpful conditions in Dharamshala, so that could be a tricky situation. And they face England at Lucknow, in a very strategically chosen venue where they are expecting some kind of spin and looking to catch England off guard. But like I mentioned earlier, they have to be wary themselves as well. So play Sri Lanka at Mumbai and South Africa at Kolkata. So two very good pitches to bat on, and then they round off their campaign against the Dutch in Bengaluru. So uh, I think it'll be a horses for courses situation, and some smart selection will be needed by Indians to make sure that they are able to qualify for that semifinals as the first aim. And then, like I mentioned, it's 2 days. Uh, how they handle the pressure and hoping that the big guns come to the party. If there is one thing that the likes of Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma would want to do is score in those knockout games and uh, shut the inhibitions of all these people out there to attack us uh, altogether. So yeah, a lot of hope. I think this might be a World Cup to look forward to as far as somebody like a Virat Kohli is concerned. He played in his first ever World Cup in 2011, won the World Cup. It was the sixth World Cup of Tendulkar, and he won it in his sixth attempt. And Virat Kohli won it in his first attempt. A lot will hinge on uh, somebody like a Shubman Gill who's playing in his first World Cup, and I expect him to be among the top three run getters for sure. So all in all, a great opportunity and a great incentive to carry on that trend of seeing the home team winning the World Cup. And this is the last chance saloon for somebody like Dravid and Rohit Sharma. When they came together as a captain and a coach, they their main prerogative was three world events. They failed in two of them. T20 World Cup last year in the semi-finals, one-sided loss against England at Adelaide, and then we all know what happened earlier this year in the WTC final as well at the Oval against the Aussies. So this is their last chance, to secure their place in the history and carry on some good work. Otherwise, we know that if the results don't go their way, then we might see changes coming in soon. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Indian team. Uh, I'll especially look forward to somebody like Siraj and Bumrah as well. After that spell that he bowled against Sri Lanka in the Asia Cup final, Siraj has become menacing and one of the best bowlers in the world across formats. And we all know what Jasprit can do in any format of the game as well. So a lot will hinge on them and the kind of starts that they give. There'll definitely be some pressure games and where things might go wrong, where the top order might be skittled cheaply, or there'll be games where the paces are, taken for runs in the initial overs. How they absorb that shock or how they absorb that pressure in front of their home fans and then react to that situation and come back and, throw a punch again at the opposition remains to be seen. So uh, if they want to avoid that chokers tag to shift from South Africa onto themselves, then they better give a good account of themselves come the crunch games. If they have a do or die game in the league stage or any semi-final followed by the final, then they need to really stand up and produce the goods because it's high time. It's been over a decade now. They have won the ICC Champions Trophy last time in 2013, so nothing after that. Have always faltered in the current situation. So hopefully they take the monkey off the back this time around, break the duck, break the trend, and go all the way. And what better sight it would be to see than Rohit Sharma holding the World Cup trophy aloft in Ahmedabad come November the 19th. So those are my thoughts on the Indian team, Ravi. Over to you on what you think, and then we can move on to our prediction for the four semi-finalists.
To start off, what I think was the original squad that was initially announced, I think I was fairly happy with it, and I mean, I was talking to multiple friends of mine in relation to who should be the third alternative, and I was very happy with the fact that either Shardul Thakur or Akshar Patel would kind of fill in and then do the job. The batting ability helps. Spinners go for a lot. Of course, you need wickets there. More than specialization, I was more focused to be aligned with other teams and squads, and the fact that we need someone who can actually bat there. And eventually, I'm not necessarily very sure if Akshar is actually injured. But even if it's a niggle or forced niggle, or probably there was some amount of conversations, I genuinely had certain problems with how Ashwin was roped in, right? I mean, it's not necessarily a time to kind of debate about if it's a right call or no. I mean, with due respect to Ashwin, I love him as a test bowler, but you fly in Washington Sundar for the Asia Cup final, and then you kind of give the same game time to Ashwin, who has had a decent series against Australia, and then suddenly there's no Washi anymore. Washi didn't have a great batting session too against Australia, and then you suddenly phase in Ashwin. So I wasn't sure of the process. I thought, okay, fine. As I was mentioning, right, 13 players pretty much select themselves, and then there's good amount of faith that Rohit has definitely shown. But fact being, I wasn't necessarily sure of Ashwin being an alternative choice. Uh, uh, so now we can still kind of talk about the fact that Ashwin may not be a first starter. It'll still be Kuldeep and Jaddu bowling their quota of 20 overs, and then the fact that Hardik will come in, and Siraj and Bumrah will be our strike bowlers, with maybe as you said, uh, uh, Shami sitting out. So on the overall balance, I think it's still fine. Overall, I'm quite happy, but the process is something that I question. But ultimately, it's Ashwin coming in who can do some amount of batting there, and I'm kind of a bit not very sure. But having said that, I think given he's not necessarily a starter, and if if Kuldeep is asked to sit, I don't know. I can't fathom what's necessarily happening there. Maybe even given the first game is against Australia at Chennai, right? So and the fact that Ashwin is from Chennai, played a bunch of games at Chepauk, so all of this will be debated, talked about, and even more so basis the game result. What I wanted to touch upon predominantly from 2019 was the fact that how we're going to handle injuries. Let's face it, Australia game, Shikhar Dhawan, once he was kind of injured after the terrific 100, which pretty much won us the game at Oval. What I felt is that eventually, once Vijay Shankar was out of the picture, there were too many things happening with Dinesh Karthik suddenly being flown in, playing, getting a game to play in. So at this point, what we need to keep in mind is that injuries are common, injuries are natural. There's a lot of cricket that the boys have played over the course of the last 6 months, and the fact that KL Rahul and Shreyas Iyer have just returned from an injury, they are highly susceptible, and any are probably very much prone. We should be thinking of plan B, plan C's, plan D's immediately. And the good part is there's no time lost in travel. Like Washington Sundar was just flown into Colombo for from Chennai. Probably if the game was in Delhi, maybe it would have been a bigger logistical challenge. Jokes apart, it's just that it's in India, so you need to have that 3 to 4 players and simulate all possible permutations and combinations, saying, okay, let's assume XXX guy is injured, and how are we gonna take it? Okay, not being pessimistic, not being, let's face it, we have a couple of 35-year-olds there, and someone who's actually prone to good amount of fitness issues. Shami is 32, 33. Bumrah is not green as ever. All of these simulations must be, addressed, and wherein we are talking about plan Bs and plan Cs, and it should not necessarily be limited to, okay, the playing 15, and then who we going to get into maintain the balance, right? Uh, uh, you know, uh, of course, I mean, uh, we should. we can be debating about various aspects of things, but it's important to kind of have that overall balance, is what I personally feel. That's one pointer that I had in my mind, uh, predominantly talking about it. And I think overall, I think in terms of fixtures, we are expected to win it all, win everything, and and just fair as we are expected to do. Rest is all left to the gods, because ultimately we need those fortunes to come in. Everything else will fall into picture, will fall into place. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents there, Pawan Bhaiya. Any inputs there?
Nothing. I think you summed up really well, Ravi. And with whatever I mentioned about the Indian team earlier, I think that should suffice. And let's hope for the best. And like I mentioned, we can expect a good performance from the Indian team on their home soil, and they will definitely be one of the front-running favorites to lift that coveted trophy. And I think with that, we come to the end of our preview of all the 10 teams who are going to take part in this 13th edition of the ICC Men's ODI World Cup. And before we call it a day, as we always like to do, give our predictions for the tournament. So this is going to be played over a grueling 45 match league phase, out of which 4 teams that are going to finish on the top are going to qualify for the semifinals, and then the team that finishes on top will play the team that finishes fourth, followed by the teams finishing second, playing against the third. And the semifinals are scheduled to be held in Mumbai and Kolkata. The final, of course, in Ahmedabad at the Narendra Modi Stadium. So, Ravi, what's your take on the 4 semifinalists?
Well, I'm not sure of the sequence, but I think it's going to be Australia, England, India, and Pakistan. Who would finish where is, I'm not very sure. So, heart, of course, says India is going to lift the World Cup, uh, but I don't know, mind says either Australia or England, and I don't want to rule out New Zealand too. So, okay, my 4 semifinalists, to just answer that question and not hover around, is that Australia, England, India, and Pakistan.
Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, we can obviously not guess the order that they're going to end up with. And like I mentioned, it does not matter where you finish up as long as you're in the top 4. And after that, you start on an even keel and just need to have 2 good days to lift the World Cup trophy. And when it comes to my hunch, I feel that India, England, New Zealand, and I'm slightly going to go, off the hook and say South Africa. I know
Mhm,
I'm not choosing Australia and Pakistan. I somehow feel that this is not going to be Australia's World Cup, and I have a feeling they're not going to qualify for the semifinals. That team is good, but they'll be found out by most of other teams, is what I feel. So India, England, New Zealand, and South Africa. Yeah, for one, South Africa, I think need to have a good World Cup. So these are my 4 teams that I'll be sticking out my neck and saying. So, and of course, we will come to know the league phase ends on the 12th of November. And to also let our viewers know that we'll be doing some frequent episodes during the World Cup as well. We'll not be waiting till the end of the league phase to come back and do a review of the league phase before the semifinals. We might, do some episodes after each match day ends and see how the teams are going and give our perspective with respect to that as well. Um, I think with that, uh, we're good to wrap up this episode. And as they say, let the party begin in Ahmedabad in just over 24 hours' time. Of course, the one downside is that we have to wake up at weird hours here in Canada to catch the games 1:30 a.m. for
When's the
me in Vancouver.
daylight going to come in, Pawan Bhai? I'm sorry to kind of budge you there, but yeah, I mean that's gonna make it worse, right?
Yes, the daylight savings is going to kick in on Sunday, 5th of November.
Okay.
So 1 week before the league stage is scheduled to end. And like I was mentioning, for me here in Vancouver, the day night games are going to start 1:30 a.m. and for you it'll be 2:30 a.m. So and the day games are of course going to be a bit more friendly. I don't know how many day games are there. I think very limited day games are scheduled around 6 or 7, and those are going to be like 10 a.m. or sorry 10:30 a.m. India time, so with 10 p.m. my time and 11 p.m. your time. Of course, all the India games are day night games, so um, you don't have a choice. I mean, when such special events happen, you keep yourself awake and try to catch as much action as possible because it's a tournament that comes on the screens once every 4 years. So enjoy it till it lasts. Yeah, like I mentioned, let the party begin and uh, hope to see some great cricketing action in the next 45 days. And may the best team win.
Yes. Thanks so much there. See you guys, everyone.
Thank you.